There is a war happening right now in the dark corridors of global power that makes the recent US election look like a polite disagreement at a country club. It is not a noisy war fought with ballots, rallies, or televised debates. It is a silent war fought with bond yields, credit spreads, and capital requirements. It is a war between the elected government of the United States, the administration chosen by 75 million people, and the unelected rulers of the global financial system. While the mainstream media obsesses over Donald Trump's tweets, his cabinet nominations, and the political theater in Washington, D.C., a silent coup has been executed behind the curtain. It is a financial maneuver so sophisticated, so unprecedented, and so scientifically designed to cripple a presidency that no nation has ever attempted it against a sitting U.S. leader until this very moment. The architect of this coup is not a politician. He is not a general. He is not a judge. He is a banker. His name is Mark Carney. You might know him as the former governor of the Bank of England, or perhaps as the former governor of the Bank of Canada, or currently as the UN Special Envoy for Climate Action and the chairman of Brookfield Asset Management, a shadow banking giant that controls nearly $1 trillion in real assets. Mark Carney just delivered a message to the incoming Trump administration that essentially amounts to a declaration of financial war. Through his leadership of the Global Climate Finance Alliance, he has signaled that the bond markets, the sovereign wealth funds, and the massive pools of institutional capital he influences will block Trump's economic agenda by simply cutting off the money supply. He is weaponizing the bond market to override democracy. He is effectively saying, "You may have the votes, Mr. Trump, you may have the presidency, but we have the capital, we have the green premium. And if you try to drill for oil, or cut regulations, or exit the Paris Accords again, we will crash your treasury market. We will spike your interest rates. We will bankrupt your administration by 2026. This is the financial veto. It is the ultimate checkmate. It turns the Oval Office into a ceremonial position and places the real power in the boardrooms of the shadow banks. And there is one man who has been quietly, obsessively preparing for this exact collision between the unstoppable force of populism and the immovable object of the bond vigilantes, Warren Buffett. While the retail investors are blindly buying the Trump trade, piling into stocks on the hope of deregulation and tax cuts, Buffett is doing the exact opposite. He is selling. He is liquidating. He is hoarding a record-breaking $382 billion in cash. He is buying Occidental Petroleum, a company directly in the crosshairs of Mark Carney's climate war. Buffett knows something you don't. He knows that when the financial elite decides to strangle a populist government, the result is not an economic boom. It is a liquidity crisis. It is a sudden stop in the flow of credit. He knows that Carney isn't bluffing. He knows that the bond vigilantes are coming for Trump, and the collateral damage of this war will be your job, your house, and your 401k. To understand how a Canadian banker and a coalition of unelected fund managers can threaten the President of the United States, we have to strip away the complex layers of international finance. We have to look at the hidden mechanism of control. We need to understand the concept of the capital strike. Most people think that the president runs the economy because he appoints the Federal Reserve Chair and signs spending bills. This is a 20th century illusion. In the 21st century, the economy is run by the bond market. Imagine the U.S. economy as a massive, sprawling factory. Donald Trump is the new CEO. He has big plans. He wants to run the machines at 100% capacity. He wants to build new expansions. Drill, baby, drill. He wants to cut costs, deregulation. He wants to export to the world. But a factory needs electricity to run. If you cut the power, the factory stops, no matter how good the CEO is. In the financial world, that electricity is credit. It is debt. The United States government runs on credit. It borrows trillions of dollars every year to pay for the military, for Social Security, for Medicare, and to service its existing debt. Corporate America runs on credit to build factories, stock inventory, and make payroll. Mark Carney represents the power company. He leads the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, GFANZ. This is not a government agency. It is a coalition of the world's biggest banks, insurers, asset managers, and pension funds. Giants like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and Brookfield. Collectively, the members of this alliance control $130 trillion in assets. That is more than the GDP of the entire planet. Carney has convinced these massive pools of capital to sign a pledge. They will only lend money to countries and companies that follow net zero climate goals and adhere to strict ESG, environmental, social, and governance standards. This sounds like noble environmental activism, but in reality, it is a political weapon of mass destruction. Here is the mechanism of the coup. The trigger. Trump announces a policy that violates the net zero mandate. For example, opening federal lands for massive new oil drilling or canceling electric vehicle mandates. The signal. Carney and the ESG rating agencies downgrade the climate risk score of the U.S. economy or specific U.S. sectors. The strike. The $130 trillion alliance triggers a capital strike. They stop buying U.S. Treasury bonds. They stop buying the corporate bonds of American energy companies. They refuse to insure new LNG terminals. The crash. When the buyers of debt go on strike, the price of the debt collapses. This means the interest rate, yield, explodes. If the buyers of U.S. debt walk away, interest rates in America don't just go up a little bit. They explode vertically. They go from 4% to 8% to 10% overnight. This crashes the housing market instantly. It crashes the stock market. It makes the interest payments on the $36 trillion national debt mathematically impossible to pay. It forces the president to his knees. It forces him to choose hyperinflation, printing money to fill the gap, or surrender, adopting Carney's policies to get the capital flowing again. We saw a preview of this in the UK in 2022. Prime Minister Liz Truss tried to pass a budget that the bond markets didn't like. She wanted to cut taxes and boost growth, a very Trump-like agenda. The bond vigilantes didn't like it. They sold UK debt, gilts. The pound crashed to parity with the dollar. Pension funds almost collapsed. She was forced to resign in 44 days. The bond market fired the Prime Minister. Mark Carney knows this playbook. He helped write it. He was the governor of the Bank of England before that crisis. He knows exactly where the pressure points are. He is preparing to do a Liz Truss on Donald Trump in 2026. He is betting that the power of $130 trillion in global capital is stronger than the power of 75 million voters. Buffett sees this mechanism clearly. He knows that Trump cannot force private banks to lend. He knows that the shadow banks, like Brookfield, are outside of the president's direct control. He knows that when this war starts, liquidity will dry up. That is why he is hiding in T-bills, the most liquid asset, and energy, the asset Carney wants to kill, which makes it scarce and valuable. We need to move this from the abstract world of Davos, Switzerland, and Wall Street boardrooms to the visceral, painful reality of your life in America, or any Western democracy, in the near future. I want you to feel what a bond market coup feels like when it hits your wallet on a Tuesday morning. I want you to close your eyes. Imagine it is a Tuesday morning in mid-2026. Trump has been in office for over a year. The economy feels tense. He is trying to pass a massive Energy Independence Act to lower inflation. The rhetoric is heated. Suddenly, Mark Carney gives a keynote speech in London at a global climate summit. He declares that U.S. fiscal policy is climate risky, unsustainable, and incompatible with global financial stability. He issues a red alert to the GFAN's members to reduce exposure to carbon-intensive sovereigns. The algorithms read the headline before you even wake up. You wake up at 7 a.m., you check your phone. You were hoping to refinance your mortgage because you're drowning in debt, and rates were supposed to come down to 5%. Yesterday, the 30-year fixed rate was 6.5%. Today, the notification on your Zillow app says, Market update, mortgage rates spike to 9.2%. You stare at the screen. You think it's a glitch. You call your mortgage broker. He picks up on the first ring and he sounds panicked. He is out of breath. It's a bloodbath, he says. The 10-year Treasury yield just jumped 100 basis points in an hour. The bond buyers are on strike. Nobody is touching U.S. debt. The banks have pulled all their loan offers. We can't refinance you. You hang up. You feel a knot in your stomach. You look at the stock market. The Dow Jones is down 2,000 points in pre-market trading. Why? Because higher rates kill company valuations. The algorithms are dumping everything. But it's not just the market. It's the real economy. It's your economy. You get in your car to go to work. You need gas. You expect cheap gas because Trump promised drill, baby, drill. But the sign at the pump says 5 hours a gallon. You are confused. I thought we were drilling more, you ask yourself. Here is the reality. Even though Trump issued the permits to drill, the oil companies cannot get the loans to build the rigs. The banks, terrified of Carney's carbon risk rules and the bond market strike, have cut off the capital to the energy sector. The permits are useless paper without the funding. Supply is constrained. Prices soar. You have entered stagflation, high prices and a crashing economy simultaneously. Later that day, you get an email from your credit card company. Due to market volatility, your variable APR has been adjusted from 22% to 29%. Your minimum payment just went up $50 a month. Your small business line of credit is frozen by the bank, pending further review of market conditions. You can't make payroll next week. You are caught in the crossfire of a war between the White House and Wall Street. The White House says, grow. Wall Street says no. And Wall Street holds the checkbook. This is the simulation Buffett is preparing for. In a capital strike, cash is king. The person who needs to borrow money dies. The person who has money, Buffett, dictates the terms. He is holding cash, so he doesn't have to beg Mark Carney or Jamie Dimon for a loan. He is holding Occidental Petroleum because when capital is cut off to drillers, the supply of oil drops, and the price of oil skyrockets. He wins on the scarcity that Carney creates. The media pundits and the political commentators will tell you this is impossible. They will say, the bond market can't fight the President of the United States. He is the most powerful man in the world. History tells a very different, very bloody story. We have to look at 1992, the Soros break. In 1992, the Bank of England, representing the UK government, wanted to keep the British pound strong. They had a policy. They had the voters. They had the mandate. But a private financier named George Soros decided their policy was mathematically impossible. He didn't have an army. He didn't have a vote. He had capital. He bet against them. He mobilized the bond vigilantes. He sold the pound aggressively. He forced the Bank of England to buy up all the pounds to defend the price. On Black Wednesday, the Bank of England fought back. They raised interest rates from 10% to 12% and then to 15% in a single day to stop the bleeding. It didn't work. The capital outflow was too strong. The government surrendered. The pound crashed. Soros made $1 billion in a day. The British taxpayers lost billions. The Prime Minister's reputation was destroyed. Mark Carney is the modern George Soros, but with 100 times more firepower. Soros had a hedge fund. Carney has the entire global ESG banking compliance grid. He controls the regulatory software of the global banking system. He doesn't need to actively short the dollar. He just needs to enforce the rules he already wrote. We also have the echo of 1832, the bank war. This is the most direct parallel in American history. President Andrew Jackson, a populist outsider like Trump, fought the second bank of the United States, the central bank of his time. The bank director was a man named Nicholas Biddle, the Mark Carney of the 19th century. Biddle believed the bank was more powerful than the president. When Jackson tried to revoke the bank's charter, Biddle famously threatened to cause a depression to force Jackson's hand. Biddle said, "I will cause a panic. I will tighten the money supply. I will crush the economy to show them that they need me." And he did. Biddle restricted credit. He called in loans. He caused a recession. Factories closed. Farmers went bankrupt. It was a brutal economic war fought to determine who ruled America, the people or the bank. Jackson eventually won, but the people suffered for years. We are entering the Bank War 2.0. Trump is Jackson. Carney is Biddle. And just like in 1832, the weapon is the restriction of credit to the common man. Buffett knows his history. He knows that when the elephants fight, the grass gets trampled. You are the grass. But here is the plot twist that makes 2026 truly terrifying. Carney isn't acting alone. And he doesn't even need to give a speech to trigger the crash. He has a secret weapon that Trump cannot fire, veto, or tweet away. It is a boring, technical set of banking regulations called the Basel III Endgame and the Climate Risk Disclosure Rules. These are banking regulations that have already been agreed upon globally by central bankers in Basel, Switzerland. They are international treaties for banks. They are set to fully kick in for U.S. banks around, you guessed it, 2025 and 2026. These rules force banks to hold more capital against assets that are deemed risky by the regulators. And guess what Carney's team and the global regulators have defined as high risk? Fossil fuels, oil and gas, non-compliant manufacturing, heavy industry, commercial real estate, your local office building. So, even if the U.S. banks want to lend to Trump's industrial boom, the international regulations tie their hands. If a bank lends $100 million to a solar farm, they might only need to hold $2 million in reserves. If they lend $100 million to an oil company, the climate risk weighting might force them to hold $15 million in reserves. It becomes mathematically unprofitable to lend to the old economy. The COUP is hard-coded into the software of the banking system. It's automated. It's a bureaucratic doomsday machine that was built while we were distracted by the pandemic and the culture wars. Trump can fire the head of the EPA. He cannot fire the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision in Switzerland. This leads to the shadow bank takeover. If traditional banks, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, can't lend because of regulations, who steps in to fill the void? Private credit. Firms like Brookfield, Carney's firm, Blackstone, Apollo, KKR. These firms are not regulated like banks. They don't have deposits. They don't have the same capital rules. They step in to lend to the oil companies and the manufacturers, but at a massive price. Instead of borrowing at 6% from a bank, companies will have to borrow at 12% or 15% from private credit. They become the new masters of the economy. They extract the wealth. Carney blocks the cheap bank loans via regulation so he can offer you the expensive private loans via his fund. It's a trap. It's a pincer movement. It's the privatization of the U.S. economy's vascular system. Buffett sees this. He is a shadow bank, Berkshire Hathaway. He has an insurance float. He doesn't rely on Basel III banks. He is immune to Carney's trap because he is his own bank. He is essentially saying, if the banking system is going to be weaponized against the economy, I will opt out of the banking system entirely. So how is the Oracle positioned for the COUP? We need to analyze his portfolio not just as stocks, but as strategic assets in a financial war. He is betting on independence. The independence from credit, cash pile, $382 billion. We keep talking about the cash, but in this context, it has a specific tactical meaning. Cash means he doesn't have to care what the interest rate is. If Carney spikes rates to 10% to crush the economy, Buffett doesn't suffer. In fact, he loves it. He earns 10% on his $382 billion risk-free. He profits from the weapon used to destroy you. He catches the yield that Carney is using to choke the system. The independence from the grid, energy, OXY and BHE. If Carney cuts off capital to new energy projects, the supply of energy falls. Drilling rigs get scrapped, exploration stops, but the world still needs oil. This means existing energy assets like the ones OXY and Chevron own become incredibly valuable. It's the last man standing theory. If it becomes illegal or financially impossible to drill a new well, the old well is worth gold. Buffett is buying the pre-regulation assets. He owns the legacy infrastructure that cannot be replaced. The anti-fragile play, insurance, Chubb, Geico, Berkshire Re. Insurance companies are required by law. You have to buy car insurance. You have to buy home insurance. And insurance companies invest their float, your premiums, in treasury bills. If rates go up, Carney's attack, the insurance portfolio earns more money. Buffett has positioned his business so that if the bond vigilantes strike and raise rates, his companies get a massive raise. He is long volatility and long interest rates. Most people are short rates because they have mortgages. Buffett is on the other side of your trade. What he is selling companies that need cheap debt to survive. Auto companies, GM, need customers to get car loans. If rates spike, GM dies. Banks, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, hold bonds that crash when rates rise. Retailers need revolving credit lines to buy inventory. These are the victims of the credit strike. Buffett is cutting them loose before the slaughter. The warning is clear. A financial war is coming to Washington. It doesn't matter who you voted for. The collateral damage will be high interest rates and a credit freeze. How do you survive the coup of 2026? Action 1. Become your own central bank. Deleverage. The weapon Carney will use is interest rates. If you have variable rate debt, credit cards, HELOCs, adjustable rate mortgages, you are standing on a trapdoor. When the strike happens, your rates will double. Pay it off. Consolidate into fixed rates immediately. If you have no debt, they cannot hurt you with rate hikes. You remove the handle they use to control you. Freedom is a paid-off mortgage. Action 2. Avoid capital-intensive stocks. Look at your portfolio. Do you own companies that need to borrow billions just to keep the lights on? Utilities that aren't self-funded. Telecoms, massive debt for 5G. Unprofitable tech companies, airlines. Sell them. They are in the blast zone. When credit tightens, these companies issue stock, diluting you, or go bankrupt. Buy companies with free cash flow and net cash, like Google, Berkshire, or quality dividend growers. Companies that don't need banks are the only ones safe from bankers. Action 3. The private credit trap. Be careful with high-yield private credit funds being sold to retail investors as a safe alternative to stocks. These funds are buying the risky loans that the banks rejected. When the COUP tightens liquidity, defaults will spike in this sector. You might be locked into a fund that can't pay you back. Stick to short-term treasuries, SGOV, or quality corporate bonds. Don't chase yield in the shadow banking sector unless you truly understand the risk. Action 4. Energy is the hedge. I will say it again. Buy energy. XLE, OXY, VDE. Carney wants to kill fossil fuels. That means he will restrict supply. Restricted supply. Plus constant demand. Higher prices. Bet on the thing they are trying to ban. It always goes up in price. If gas goes to $5, your energy stocks will pay for the difference. Action 5. Watch the 10-year Treasury yield. This is your canary in the coal mine. You don't need a Bloomberg terminal. Just check the US 10Y ticker on Google Finance. If you see the 10-year yield spike suddenly, like from 4.5% to 5.5% in a week, without a clear economic reason, like a sudden inflation report, that is the capital strike beginning. That is the signal that the bond vigilantes are attacking. That is the signal to go to cash and defensive assets immediately. The final verdict on the coup against Trump is a lesson in power. The president has the nuclear codes, but the bond market has the ATM codes. And in a debt-based economy, the ATM codes matter more. Mark Carney and the global financial elite are prepared to crash the system to protect their agenda. They have done it before, UK, and they have the mechanism to do it again, Basel III. They are betting that Trump will blink before the economy collapses. It is a game of chicken played with your retirement savings. Warren Buffett has stepped off the tracks. He is watching from the safety of his cash mountain. He knows that when the collision happens, there will be wreckage to buy. He knows that the green war on brown energy creates a profit opportunity for the patient investor. You must do the same. Do not bet on politics saving you. Bet on math. Get out of debt. Get into cash. Get into real assets. Be like Buffett. See the invisible war. Understand the weapon of liquidity. And ensure that when the bankers try to break the president, they don't break you. I am immensely grateful to you for staying until the end of this critical warning. If you found this breakdown valuable and you want to be prepared for the financial reset of 2026, make sure to like and subscribe so we can keep bringing you the truth about the financial system that the brochures leave out. Stay vigilant, stay independent, and we will see you in the next video.